gonna steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Clapping down. Good to go. Bad ideas, good stories.
Numero 13.
Yeah, lucky 13.
It seems to be.
Yeah,
Always
okay.
been for me.
Always lucky, you know. I remember reading somewhere that the unlucky association with the number 13 came from, or especially Friday the 13th, was when the French king assassinated all of the Templars on a Friday the 13th for owing too much money, or the French king owed the Templars too much money, and instead of paying it back, he just said that they were all heretics, they needed to be executed, and on a Friday the 13th, they were all like rounded up and slaughtered, and that's where the unlucky element of the 13th comes from.
Because I'd heard of that part, I just didn't know it was the Friday the 13th was when that happened.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And then there's the aspect of, what is it, Jesus and 12 apostles, so the unlucky 13 is like, I guess would be...
It does seem kind of an arbitrary number otherwise.
Yeah, it does. It does seem kind of strange. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is our 13th podcast.
Yep.
Going pretty good. Yeah. What's new?
What's new with me? I went for my first bicycle ride of the year today.
Oh.
I was very excited about that. I usually ride bicycles lots, and I just haven't had my bike out once yet. So.
Where'd you go?
Nowhere. Just around the block, basically, around the
Like
neighborhood.
Street riding? Street riding?
Yeah, just out pedaling around, making sure everything works, none was falling off. So, yeah, not a very exciting trip, but I really enjoyed it, because that's like one of my favorite things in the world, is getting really stoned, getting on my bike, and then going to get ice cream.
Yeah.
And then just like pedaling around eating ice cream. It's the best shit ever, yeah. You can't
I'm
go
pedaling
fast.
with my hand here.
That's how you do it, yeah. Whatever gets you by.
What's funny, like the other day when we were talking about, you say it out loud, now you're obligated to do it.
Yeah.
I said for public record that I need to bike more, and I was considering trail bike riding, and then all of a sudden I started getting messages. So I saw you say in public that you need trail bike buddies, and I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. I have to go do this thing now. I have to get out and start hitting the trails, and my quads are already crying. They don't want to do that. They don't want to go up.
Oh, you were out pedaling already?
Well, I bike around on the streets, but I haven't hit trails. I've never done trails, and I'm scared shitless. Of getting my skin or my shins all shredded and eating dirt. I'm not much of a helmet wearing guy, so I concuss myself, right?
Yeah, man. And I don't know. I just about haven't seen harder spills than people on mountain bikes.
This is what I need to hear.
I legit. It was a buddy of mine. We were out for just a little rip around town the one day. We're down by the river, and he was like into it hard. Like he'd go to the mountains and ride those big crazy trails through the trees and shit like that. And we're down by the river, and the rest of us are all on like little cruisers or whatever. Hey, and he's like, "Oh, I know there's a jump here. Check this out." And he comes barreling down, and he hits it, and like just full send and eat shit as hard as I've ever seen anybody eat shit. Like ass over TKL, slams himself head first into the ground, into the trees. I'm like, we gotta get an ambulance. Hey,
the
like,
least graceful fucking
rides
male
over.
you've ever seen. Oh, really? It was
That's what I thought, right? And then he jumped back up, and his pants were all tore up. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get it this time." And he goes running back up the hill. Hey, and I'm like, "Holy fuck, dude!"
That reminds me of the
I don't have that
13-year-old
in me.
kid. I'm good. I'm good. Hey, I'm good. I'm just bleeding a little bit. I can get the jump.
I think we were 30 at the time, though.
Yeah,
right? Fucking, bikes.
Yeah, making ramps out of like, what is it, 2x4s and a piece of plywood, and just adding those 2x4s up there. Sooner or later, they all just flail, or I remember being like 13, maybe 13 or 12, riding by the mall in my old neighborhood, Confed Mall, and I'm cruising along, and there was this really pretty girl walking a dog, and I was distracted by her, and then like I look forward, and there's a drop off, and I'm talking like 3 to 4 feet drop off, and I'm like, I've seen BMX videos, I know I could probably go off this edge, and if I'm smart, I can land properly, right? But it was like instant. And instead of lifting, I just went straight off. Wheel first, I sacked myself. I smashed my face on the ground. I'm just like, wham! And like, in a planter to boot. Like, I just drove off into a planter. And of course, girl walking dog is just like, what the fuck is with this guy? And I'm like, I'm cool. I totally wasn't cool at all. I was so fucked up. I think I had bruises all on my inner thigh area. Yeah. testy bruises. Yeah.
Yeah, I think many people's first public humiliations would be on pedal bikes, eh?
Yeah, that's so brutal.
That just reminds me of this. One time a cousin of mine stopped by, and my brother had just gotten a new bike, and he was really, really stoked on it. And our cousin gets on it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, check it out." He's wheeling around, and he's like, "Get off my bike, you fat asshole!" Screaming at him, eh? And he's laughing, and the fucking seat bends down because it was new. He hadn't been all tightened up yet, and he slides backwards onto the wheel, and then jams his balls and everything right up in between the wheel and the frame, and right in where the brake is, and he can't stop because he can't use the brake, so he's got his feet on the ground. Just the horrific scream. But yeah, it was like instant karma. Hey,
Oh, fuck you! I do what I want.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Hope your balls are fine, Sean.
Well, it's so funny. Like, we don't really consider those fun times when we decide to get on a bike with an engine. Even tiny ones, right? And
No, I think of it every single time. I'm constantly having like flashes of like, that's a missing foot.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, anytime I've seen, especially if I'm with, like, not so much, I don't get that anal about it when I see other people sit on the road, but like if I'm riding with somebody or I see somebody take off and they're in like flip flops, I'm always just like, you're gonna come back with less toes than you started out with. You're not even gonna mean to. You're gonna be like, I just put my foot down just to catch myself going around the corner, and then I lost 3 fucking toes.
Well, I'm notorious for riding with shorts on. I always wear sneakers at least, but I'm notorious for riding with shorts on when the weather's hot, and a t-shirt. I don't really like to get all geared up when it's plus 30. I want to be in the wind a little bit. But fuck, I'll be damned. I've got plenty of burns on the inside of my calves from putting it down and touching a pipe or a running engine or any of that stuff. And I'm like, oh, note to self. That's why you're supposed to wear
taking a bee in the shit at highway speed sucks.
Yeah, well, see, that's just it. I wouldn't go on the highway like that. I wore a tank top with jeans and boots on a highway ride once, and that was, I got quite the sunburn because you don't feel it with the wind on you. You're like, oh, it's nice weather, nice and cool, but you got like 100-kilometer wind on you, and like that radiation from the sun is still burning the fuck out of you, and then one side of you is super red. You got like the raccoon goggle marks. That's a good one. Gotta love the guys that ride a lot. That combination of windburn and raccoon like sunburn. Yeah.
And I'm notorious for getting the just like a 6-inch strip across my lower back. just barely the top of my ass and the first little bit of my lower back. Yeah. Definitely drastic color than the rest of me.
Yeah, we went up to the lake this weekend, and that was really cool. I haven't really been out to the lake with any homies for a long time, and got a little bit of color. And it's funny because these guys are used to burning the fuck out of themselves, like to the point where they're like peeling and blistering. But I've been around enough that as soon as I notice that color starting to shift, I'm like wearing t-shirts more as opposed to tank tops. And I'm like, I've got like a Crocodile Dundee style hat with the brim all the way around so I don't get a redneck. The back of my neck doesn't get all burned. The tops of my ears don't get burned off. And I really don't give a fuck how goofy I look wearing it. It's just... This is my if I'm going to be in the sun a lot, that's what I'm going to wear hat. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Talking hats. No, I agree though. I fucking all the time if I'm out in the sun during the day for work and I don't have a hat on, my brain goes to mush almost instantly.
Really?
Like it cooks my fucking head. I can't talk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So wear a goddamn hat.
Well, I don't think people quite realize, and I didn't until I realized, okay, so I'm wearing a ball cap. My ears are fucking burned. I get like the flat or the snapback half circle burn in the back of where my hat is, or my hair is shorn. So I'm like, okay, I need a brim hat. And then I started putting together that these hats are all made for fucking reasons. Like a cowboy hat is to protect the ears. The sombreros are like from places where you're in a lot of sun and you literally need like
it's not just fashion.
No, they can't fit through a door. Of course not, because you're actually under that thing. Yeah, so
you have a nap under that. That's the idea.
But it was cool. We got out
sleeping hats.
Sleeping hats, exactly right. Pull that hat a little low and nobody can see how ugly you look when you sleep. But yeah, we got out into the bush a little bit. We went up into a creek, which was pretty cool. Wore our wet shoes so we can actually walk in the creek. And fuck, it was rad, We were with a couple really big pit bulls, which was kind of handy because Buddy's dad, he's like, oh yeah, there's bears in the neighborhood. Be very careful, And we're like, so let's go into the creek and up into the bush. But
what do bears eat? Berries? Let's check those out.
Yeah, let's go there. Where the fresh water and all the berries and shit are. But these dogs were really handy, like they would spot stuff that we wouldn't have a clue, and all of a sudden, row, 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 like straight into the bushes. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate being kept safe. That was the difference because I've got a Chihuahua and a Jack Russell Terrier now, and I used to have 2 pit bulls, and that's the difference between a a security system when you have pit bulls, and an alarm system when you have a Chihuahua. One lets you know something's going on, but it's not going to protect you. The other one, yeah, your house is pretty safe. You know, you're not coming
They
in.
got lasers and a moat.
Yes, and these guys were like some of the biggest pit bulls I've ever seen, like monstrous dogs. So I think the two of them with at least one person would be pretty good against, well, scaring a bear away at least.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Were they good riding dogs?
Almost. Yeah. Like I'm sitting there thinking about like these cultures that used to have war dogs, you know, like mastiffs, and they put armor on them, and like they were part of like the whole like, woo, we're gonna take things out, you know, attack horses in the battlefield. And I could see these dogs because they were almost that size. Like the one standing is
They could nibble on a pony.
Yeah, pretty easily catch a pony's neck or head.
Jesus.
Yeah, they're big
Pony
dogs.
biting dogs.
Yeah, war dogs are next
Dogs. I
level.
didn't know that was a thing.
Oh no,
Nope. Wasn't aware.
big motherfucking dogs that they would like literally go in and just like go and just like go into a crowd of guys and just tear them up.
Really?
They'd have armor on and shit like that. Man, they've had war elephants. Like,
I guess.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Pick a thing, right?
yeah. I think it was the Romans, Marcus Aurelius, maybe. He had like a war elephant, and the whole fucking tusks, everything. Like the trunk was all armored, like
Black
plate
Sabbath had
armor.
their war pigs.
War pigs, yeah. I always thought about that. If the story would be different, if the indigenous people like learned how to ride buffalo into battle. Can you imagine that?
Shit, who says they didn't?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that was part of the culture that was really fucking like
Oh, the
everything
old
else we
ones.
kind of let squeeze through, but if the people know they can fucking mount these things and dominate everybody, we can't
Ride
have that.
into like, you know, a little like what's it called, railroad camp.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the
Just
ground
kick
starts
shit
shaking and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of freight trains come flying through.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
Well, have you seen the guy in the buffalo videos? I'm sure.
No.
Oh, if you get a chance, pop on the YouTubes and watch the little guy in the
Oh,
buffalo.
the guy that rides a buffalo.
Well, it's just snippets of clips based off this movie. I think it was called The Buffalo Rider from like the 70s, and it was like a western. It was all live action shit, real stunts with fucking buffalo and guys chasing a wolf and whatever. But this other guy does a bunch of parody shit over top. Everyone kind of sing talks what's happening during the scenes, and it's the funniest fucking shit you've ever seen, and really shows the capabilities of a buffalo.
Huh.
Yeah, very maneuverable, good at kicking wolves.
Good at kicking wolves,
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah, no, well, fuck. You think about it. There's a couple like YouTube, I think, or Instagram for sure. Nature is Metal. Have you seen this? Nature is Metal is one of the craziest channels or craziest accounts that you can find. I think you can find it on Facebook too. And it basically shows nature versus nature. You know, like so one of the classic Nature is Metal videos is I think there's like some gazelles or something, or no, wildebeest, or, you know, like the big water buffaloes. They're down by a watering hole, and I think an alligator comes up and tries to get one of the calves or whatever. And then a family of lions decide they want to get it. So there's a full-on fight between this lion pride and this alligator fighting over this like this calf, and it's somebody who just happened to be there. Oh, look at this nice, you know, African watering hole, and they actually catch what actually goes down. And Nature's Metal, they show a whole bunch of these, you know, different animals in nature that just kind of run into each other. It's like, no, this is mine. Like two grizzly bears that run into each other and they decide that they're in each other's, you know, hunting or mating grounds. That happens to be on a highway with a bunch of cars that are stopped to let the bears pass, and then they get into it like toe to toe, beak to beak, and then
You got like bear fight crossing signs.
legitimately these guys are bear fighting. And like, man, if you've ever seen like a dog with a toy start doing that back and forth thing with their head, just imagine these two huge bears latching onto each other and doing that to each other's necks. They're just like, fuck you, get out of my area, you know? Yeah, Nature's Metal. If you get a chance, check it out. That's some pretty crazy stuff.
Animals biting other animals.
War. War. Nature is war. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you want to talk about. Start out light. I know this is something a lot of other people have already been kind of talking about a bit and is in the news, but I think it's super fucking interesting, and I'd like to know any conspiracy theories anybody has about this. With the FedEx assassin killing the fucking judge in the Epstein Deutsche Bank case.
The son, right? The son
Well,
of the judge.
killing her husband and her son, and her husband was also he was a defense attorney, I believe.
Okay, so you're going to have to start right at the beginning, because I only know the vaguest outline of this situation. So explain it to me like I'm a dummy, and for those dummies.
Okay. So a short while ago, this guy dressed as a FedEx person, not with just in the uniform and shit,
So he wasn't a FedEx guy?
not a FedEx
Okay.
guy at all, goes up to a house in, I believe it was New Jersey, and when the son answers the door, shoots him, shoots the husband. The wife is upstairs, the judge, who they figure was the actual target.
Okay.
And right after that, this guy drives, I believe, up into upstate New York and then kills himself, supposedly, sitting in a car somewhere. And almost no motivation whatsoever behind this for him personally, from what they can see. Like it's
They don't know where he came from or who he was.
Well, no, like they know he was a lawyer also, and he had posted some, I think, a few things online, like some kind of right wing things, and maybe even phoned into Howard Stern or some shit like that once.
Okay.
And so there was almost...
And he'd been on Fox News, right? Talking about men's rights? Is this the same guy?
This men's rights guy. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, and that's what they tried to paint him as and say, well, he's a men's rights... But that was like one time. It wasn't like he wrote a bunch of articles about it or whatever. But then it also turned out that like he'd been to Russia in like the late 80s for some reason. And so anyways, it's getting a kind of weirder backstory because at first it seemed like, FedEx guy just shoots a house, and then it's like, well, no, it seems like it's targeted, and that wasn't a FedEx guy, and then, well, then why did he kill himself right away? And he doesn't have a manifesto or any reason supposedly why he did this. They're trying to argue that, well, maybe he was kind of a crazy men's rights activist, so he was going after this female judge. But what she was currently presiding over was the case of Jeffrey Epstein and Deutsche Bank, and where Jeffrey Epstein's money was coming and going from, and because Deutsche Bank is like one of the biggest money launderers in the world, and it's well known that's what they do for Russian oligarchs. So it's interesting because that's the stuff where people keep getting killed, right? The stuff that is tied to Epstein. So like Epstein ends up dead.
And money. And big finance.
Exactly. But I mean, you think of all the other crazy shit that's going on in the world right now, but this is the one storyline where there keeps being people dead. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And dead in like very creative fucking ways.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, for sure.
So it's just interesting because there doesn't really seem to be a reason for why this guy did it. So one of the conspiracies is that maybe he was some sort of agent. You know what I mean? And then he was trying to lay this backstory by having this out there so that if they ever need to activate him to have him do something like this, they can say, well, he was this men's rights guy, or he'd have these other things where you can kind of point to him being a little bit out there.
Well, that goes towards that old school conspiracy that the MK Ultra CIA experiments were designed to create what they called a Manchurian candidate, right? Which was...
well, and I don't even know if that's a conspiracy.
Well, I think it's been proven.
Said, well, no, we did it, and they're not saying that they ever used it. You know
we did it. Now that it's out of the media,
capable of it, and it's
Manchurian Candidate would be that they take somebody, an operative, or whether he's willing or not, and through drug induction or hypnotic induction or other brainwashing techniques, they make this person an assassin without knowing that they're an assassin. So they're a sleeper agent that when, let's say, a combination of colors and sounds and a code word happen at the same time, they go into their automatic training and they carry out whatever assassination is fed to them after. And that was largely considered a conspiracy tinfoil hat theory for a long time. They're like, yeah, whatever. Because there's movies about it, Manchurian Candidate being one of them. Yeah. But then there's a hypnotist. You could find his video. His nickname is The Assassin. And he has a half-hour special on YouTube. I forget his name. But he goes through the steps to actually hypnotize a guy to assassinate him at one of his shows. So it's a half-hour episode. I'll put a link on the video when we get it up, or I'll put the name to look it up. But basically what he does is out of the whole crowd, he finds the most susceptible guy to hypnotic post-suggestion. Then he's like, okay, so we're going to play some games. We're going to find out if hypnosis can make you a better shot. So he takes him to the firing range. He does a couple shots. He puts him under hypnotic trance, and then he makes his accuracy. You focus on the target. All you see is the target. Blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, his shooting gets more accurate. Then he moves to the next step where it's like, oh, I forget the steps, but basically when you see this color, all of a sudden you're automatically going to see that target, and now you can shoot it no problem, right? And then it goes to, you hear this sound and you automatically pull out the gun and you could shoot this target. And he goes through several weeks of training this guy voluntarily, who's already hypnotically suggestible, to the point where they go to a big theater where there's a comedian saying, and then this woman sits in front of him with a specific colored dress. He gets a phone call, or the lady sitting next to him gets a phone call with a specific ringtone, and when she answers the phone, she says the code word. This guy had been carrying a package, which what he thought was an unarmed or unloaded prop gun. He automatically pulls the gun out and starts firing at the guy speaking. And he puts the gun away and starts walking away like nothing even happens. And then he comes back and he's like, I don't remember what happened. So this hypnotist actually proved over a series of weeks, just with like hypnosis, not with drugs, not with any like sensory deprivation stuff, just with a voluntary guy in hypnosis, he could con this guy into going through with an assassination, regardless of whether he knew he was doing it or not. I'll put the link on the video. I forget the hypnotist's name is David something, and his nickname is the Assassin, because he's like a really crazy stage hypnotist, and it's like a half-hour documentary on how he basically creates a Manchurian candidate.
Well, okay, so I think that's where they muddy the waters a bit, right? Because they'll try and say, like, well, you couldn't make somebody do this. You couldn't take somebody off the street and make them into one. Okay, fair enough. But can you get somebody to sign up for a program that they're not necessarily sure what it's for, and then it turns out these are the best viable candidates, and you're going to put them through it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, why wouldn't they?
They go to any university campus, there's a big list of people, hey, do you want to take part of this like drug testing or this like sociological experiment or this psychology experiment? And all these people go marching in, hey, it's going to be $100. Cool, yeah, let's do a meditation or a sleep depth program or whatever. You're going to pay me $1,000 to stay in a bed for a month? Let's do that, that kind of stuff. And
in the meantime, they're hypnotizing you, and feeding you shit while you're sleeping.
Well, I think there's declassified documents about CIA doing MK Ultra LSD testing on unwitting patients in Montreal. And so they came into a Canadian university, and they unwitting participants signed up for a basic test, and this was a U.S. government mind control program. And you can look it up, Montreal MK Ultra declassified, and it's declassified information that they actually did this.
Well, and I actually read a bit about that as well. I think the one woman even talks about her experience and about how she went through it. Like she continued for years with the program after that, which is wild. So it wasn't like a one-off thing. Oh, we just tried it out and we seen. It was like, no, you're fine-tuning it, and then you're going to do it again someplace else.
Oh,
Someplace else.
So it works this much in Montreal. So you set one up in Texas. You set one up in California. You set one up in Seattle. And like all of these different little things have these college campus kids going into, dude, who knows what? Oh, you're a political studies major? That's great. You've got a proclivity to post-hypnotic suggestion? Even better, Here you go. We're going to pay you as being part of this program, right? So I don't discount any of those conspiracies, but you really have to balance what makes sense and what isn't. Yeah. Because then you get into that tinfoil hat stuff, like Project Monarch, that like all of the Project Monarch seems to say that there's a whole bunch of like Disney, Mickey Mouse Club celebrities that are being programmed to be like hypersexualized and to be used as like sex servants for the Hollywood elite.
I've seen TV, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Well, to some degree, I believe that like Hollywood's got a hyper superficial sexualized element, but I don't necessarily think that's a huge conspiracy for CIA mind control. Maybe socially there's some elements of programming that are going on to create.
Well, and that's what advertising is, right? It's all programming. So that would make sense. I mean, even if there's no use for it for the CIA to do that, if you can just keep people buying your product by doing it, then same thing, just different use.
That's what Edward Bernays says in his book Propaganda, that he says in my blouse. Oh, propaganda, yes. and propaganda became politically incorrect, so it got renamed public relations, right? Or so public relations is advertising. Right. So when we talked about that, the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, at the very bottom layer is that the bottom level of survival needs includes, shelter and food and survival and keeping your kids safe and procreation and having sex. These are all very root needs. So if you can say, this pen will get you sex. Well, fuck, I need that pen if I want to make babies. I need to buy that pen or that car or that toothpaste or have that house in order to breed. So they confuse these two needs, like, guess what? Here's a mating symbol, somebody you want to make a baby with, but you need this thing in order to get that thing. And that's playing with your psychology in a very manipulative way. And I think it's happening as a pretty common societal tool. By those people that understand it, which are largely public relations firms.
Yeah, it's interesting that became such a big thing, the spin. It's all about the truth in politics. And, well, no, it's how you spin it. Everybody can have their own opinion.
I went to a lecture one time, and this guy was doing hypnosis, because I'm into that stuff, and he pointed out that Donald Trump's language patterns are neurolinguistic programming 101. They bypass your rational mind and speak directly to your subconscious. Good, important. important people agree with this. Well, if I want to be important, I better agree with this, that kind of. And he's speaking to like a grade 3 to 5 level. He's not talking to intelligent people. Well, he might be talking to intelligent people, but he's appealing to their root level where anybody can understand. So he's bypassing your logical, critical mind and speaking directly to your subconscious on purpose. And that's like...
Well, that's even with his bullshit making everybody's nicknames. You know what I mean? That's what something in grade 5 does.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It's
But
very...
very basic, but you can get behind it. You laugh, you chuckle a bit.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah, oh, well, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, he's an entertaining speaker. It's very entertaining to watch his speeches. He talks shit. He makes fun of people. He cracks jokes through the whole thing.
That's true.
It's not boring.
Yeah, it's entertaining. Yep.
Yeah, it's not boring, and he doesn't speak about the details of policy, the boring minutia of like debt and deficit and like the business end of the. He's like, oh, this person, oh, Mick Fuckhead, like the lefty Lucy over there. Like he comes up with these little nicknames that are just easy to remember, and these.
Why?
Well, right, because he's appealing to the lowest common denominator. Anyways, yeah.
Because he can't remember. Hey, so we're just kind of talking about existence a little bit. I was thinking about this the other day.
We're not going to get deep. But
I don't know about how deep, but no. But
segue.
Well, I was just thinking about this phrase that I'd heard, and I'm probably not going to say it correctly, but it was something like, "You only truly die the last time someone says your name." And I was thinking about art. And like what drives us to make art, and kind of a little bit of this was actually after watching a Rogan podcast with David Cho, which was fucking awesome. If you guys get a chance, check it out. CHOE David Cho, just up recently. But it was kind of just thinking about like what makes us make art. Is it just stuff that you got to get out of yourself, or things you have to express, or whatever? But is there like something deeper about having those representations of yourself, your inner self, out in the real world live on? Is that kind of it? You know what I mean? Because I keep thinking like if you're making music, for example, like it's really not for you. It's very rarely if you make music that you just sit there and that's what you listen to as your own stuff, unless it's to critique it, or fine tune it or whatever. And even then, myself, I'm never like totally satisfied with everything. So it's clearly not for me. It's for somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. But I make it with very selfish intentions. I'm not thinking of whoever the end result is of this. It's mine. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to express it. And then I'm thinking about that more, and I'm like, well, then if I'm not doing it for them, and they're the only ones who ever get to appreciate it, you know what I mean? Because I don't really appreciate it, then why am I doing it? But maybe it is for that purpose then. So instead of like having children, you know what I mean? Like that can carry on. Somebody's going to talk about how great grandpa did whatever he did. But if your art in some way lives on and people are still talking about you, is that kind of the point?
When we dance alone, are we dancing for anybody but ourselves?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? When you're listening to music in your house by yourself or your apartment, and you just start moving and dancing and grooving by yourself, is that for anybody but you? What is it?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, okay, for sure, because it's like you feel like you have to express that through movement.
Yes.
But from your perspective, unless you're looking at it in a mirror or through video, you can never really appreciate the details of your movement. You're doing it, but you can't really appreciate how it looks in motion, which is when dancing's appreciated. Dancing's never appreciated from the first person. You know what I mean? You love the feeling of it, but when you're going to a dance contest is you have to see how everything works together.
Maybe it is, because there's tons of people that dance just for themselves and nobody ever sees it. There's people that write for themselves and then they just throw it away. Now, I know when I write for a journal entry, or if I write poetry or any of that stuff, in the back of my mind, there's a yearning to be understood better. And whether or not anybody else ever reads that, there's that yearning that if somebody ever did, they would get a deeper insight to who I really was versus all of these perceptions of the external me, right? And I think that's coming from a creative part of me, an unconscious part of me that needs to impose itself on my environment. Hell, look at my basement. You know what I mean? It's a creative
This is
environment.
all you. This is all your energy put out here in different ways. Even if you didn't create every piece of art, it's this is how you fucking want it.
Well, it's stuff that I've collected and just slapped up in a way that seemed to be aesthetically made sense, right? My body, tattoos, all of that stuff. It's a creative thing. But I this is where I kind of get almost theistic with the creator, right? That maybe that which we perceive as creation is a manifestation of the will to create and to impose itself upon reality, and that every word that we say comes from that same point where I need to express myself out in reality. And it depends on that macro and micro level, you know, where does that creative unconscious begin?
That's right. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like if that's the only way your energy can continue forth, right? Like,
but does it need to be remembered? Because I don't like to think so. I have a sneaking suspicion that everything that I know is real is going to disappear. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, you know what I mean? Like right? Like a jalapeno burp, you know, momentarily spicy but gone, right? You know, like that was a thing. Now it's gone, and so this gets really deep. Where do we originate from? Like when we think about who we are, past our perceptions, you know, and our thoughts mulling over perceptions, when we get to the point where like, who are the we that's actually contemplating this stuff? Are we matter? Are we a biological machine? Okay, so no, I can have my arms cut off, my legs cut off, my everything except my I guess my mind. You know, my eyes, I could be blind, deaf,
and even
dumb.
Portions of your brain could be gone. Still.
Yes, 100%.
Eventually get down to a certain amount where that disappears.
But I'm still there. Yeah. I'm still contemplating. Now, so that contemplation, now I'm ruminating an idea. Now when you take away that idea, what's left for me? Where am I in all of that? Am I in my brain? Am I in my heart? Well, I can exist as just what is that? The Metallica song One, based off of Johnny Got His Gun. There's a book called Johnny Got His Gun. Metallica bought the rights so they could write the song One based off of it. A landmine is taking my arms, taking my sight, taking my hearing, taking my, like, so basically it's about a guy who hits a landmine and all he is being kept alive by machines. He can't see, he can't hear, he can't speak, he can't feel. He's just a mind being kept alive by machines post World War One, right? So this person or this identity is still existing regardless of all of the externals. So whether or not that's a liberation or an insanity, there's that consciousness that's contemplating itself. Now, where does that arise from? Where does thought arise from? You know, from pre-existing stuff? Or does it come from nothing into something, like a big bang, universal beginnings, right? Which I think is that threshold between dimensionality, you know, for that big, all of a sudden there's something out of nothing. And like there's a Latin term called ex nihilo nihil fit, which means nothing can come from nothing. But maybe that's exactly what happens when we cross a dimensional threshold, where something emerges out of nothing, like a big bang or a birth or the birth of consciousness in the womb, right? So,
well, but I think even that interdimensional idea, it's still like that existed already. It's just not on this plane.
Right, exactly. But this plane is real. This is our reality. These are parameters of our reality. So all of a sudden, if something created out of nothing, it's bursting into our reality from something beyond our reality, right? And that's, I think, where that whole like interdimensional stuff comes into play. Like, where do we, I, you, me, whatever? I know I'm here. I take for granted everybody else is too, but I know for sure that I'm here. When I die, maybe I just leave this point of reality into a different reality that I can't be this to get there. Right. Or shit, whatever is there isn't anything compared to
a lot of this feels like a trial run to me. You know what I mean? A lot of this existence feels like testing the waters, figuring out how shit works. Like, are you fucking okay being able to do this? Like, you gotta really know if you can fucking handle the power of what there is to be. Because to me, like, again, if there's a bigger consciousness of some sort that we're all part of, and there's some connectivity to it, it's almost, maybe it's like tentacles then. And there's a tentacle into you, into him, into me, and then this is how we can express this in this world, right? Is through our words, through our art, through our fucking motorcycles, whatever it is we want to do. And then if there is something that is of value to it, and then can continue to carry on because other people see value in it, maybe that is like the true expression of the bigger consciousness, because it continues to form, right?
There's a continual flow, you know, whether you know, and one thing flows into another,
and maybe that becomes our purpose then, right? People talk about purpose, maybe it is for a bigger thing. It's not just for it's our individual journeys, which we have to learn the lessons we have to, but if it's also to contribute to something that's going to be bigger maybe we're just the conduit for that.
See, that's a very interesting thought, because there's two views on this, and I'm really conflicted about these two different views. One is the pyramid view, or the Jacob's ladder view, where our goal on this planet is to refine ourselves to get to higher levels of consciousness. So for whatever happens after that, maybe reincarnation, maybe a heaven state, maybe another interdimensional paradise or next level, that if you do good enough, you get reborn into the next place. But then the karmic idea in Hinduism is, if you don't do good enough, you just keep repeating it, and you keep repeating until you slowly refine yourself to that point where you can go to the next place. But then
Doesn't that feel like that's what we're doing though?
In lots of ways.
Especially that one, I'm just like, holy fuck. Yeah,
well, you know, in lots of ways, like every time I go to sleep, I'm born again in the morning, based off of the existence I had the day before. Or, you know, every moment, I'm born again in this moment as a consequence of what just happened to me, right? But then there's also the other element, which I'm just kind of learning about with this animist course, where they're going more into the circular ecosystem idea, where everything is just like a mash of everything interacting, and life is just happening, and life is life. And that hierarchy idea is a very human idea. It's like, oh, evolution, I need to be higher to become a better thing. And then there's lower things, you know, there's superior and less, as opposed to the I guess the pre-colonial, the animist idea, indigenous idea, where we are all one thing. And we are just, there's differences. There's bigger, there's smaller, there's more powerful, there's less powerful, there's new, there's ancient. And we are just navigating that interaction between life itself. And I really felt this when we were out in the bush.
Sure.
So we're in this stream, and I'm noticing everywhere I step, I'm interrupting something that was perfectly functional in its own little world before I got there. Like, I'm stepping on moss, and all of a sudden these bugs are like, holy fuck, my whole universe just got banged up. We lift a rock up, or I lift a log up, and I showed my daughter, and there was all these ants running around like, holy shit, hide the babies. So they're carrying all their little larvae away, and she's like, holy, I've never seen that before. I'm like, yeah. Or we move another log, and there's snakes, because the snakes are all like breeding in there, and frogs, and everybody's just living their life in this perfect kind of like ecosystem of understanding, but nothing isn't alive. Or that's not a good word for it. Everything is alive. So the trees are alive. The algae is alive. Every little insect and worm inside there is alive. The beavers that are building the dams are alive. They're taking down living trees. They're building their houses with it. So it's just life interacting with life on a real, like, core level. Everything is alive there. And if you look at it that way, I'm just another life. Well, weirdly, it's weird because you're kind of like exiled from that world, but you also have this consciousness where you can notice all of it even more than those people that are in that world. People, you know, the little frog people or beaver people or tree people. So, right? And I'm like doing my best not to, like, I found this really nice like log or a stick in the stream, and I'm like, maybe I'll take this home. And I picked it up, and there's all these little worms crawling on the bottom of it because that's their home. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to fuck with your home. I'm going to put that back and not destroy your existence because I want a memento, right? And so that was a really kind of a wake-up call, being like in the bush and in the middle of just like life. You know what I mean? It's not this cold, square, concrete, artificial creation that's like environmentally controlled. It's chaos. It's chaos, but chaos is real, and it's only our little arbitrary institutions that are kind of false, and that's what really fucked with me.
Well, hey, how quick does all that dissolve as soon as you get away from like painted lines and fences?
Yeah, like
it's all the other, those are real. You can see lines, you can see fences, you can feel them, and all the other shit that holds us in is way fucking tighter working than a fence or a painted line, and it's all imaginary.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter out there.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, there's rules. You get eaten if you do the wrong thing. Like, that's it, you know? Respect or be disrespected. And if you're too loud or too stinky or too whatever, like, those big scary guys are going to find you because you're prey. You know? Right. And I find that really, really interesting, though, where, that this entire trip is, like, life interacting with life. And It's really weird because where does that originate from? And it's almost like there's two polar different views. This hierarchy superiority trip where, you know, we're above nature. We're removed from nature for some reason because we have our squares. Everything's got like 90-degree angles and very structured. And then you've got this organic, you know, root system, like everything is alive. You step into the ecosystem of the forest.
Well, and I think what kind of separates us is that ability to even have those concepts, right? And so to me, that's almost why there is some sort of hierarchy, because if animals and shit don't have the ability to, like, one person can fuck up a whole huge area throughout a lifetime if they want to, either just with their own hands or by building a company that's going to continue to do that. Whereas animals don't have that ability. You know what I mean? Like, they don't, and even if they have the imagination to possibly see that sort of fucking vision of the future, they couldn't physically make it happen. They don't have the tools, they don't have the technology, whatever, right? We're the only ones that have that. So then it's almost kind of like, look, you can see how this all exists and how it can all balance. Now, what are you going to do with this infinite amount of power you could exert over this?
That's a good point, yeah. Well, take a look at what we would consider a monster in nature, you know, like the man-eating tigers of Africa. Or what was it? There was lions in Africa. Something in the Darkness.
Ghost in the Darkness.
Ghost in the Darkness.
God damn, that's a good movie.
Yeah, well, and it's a true story where these, like, I think there were two feral lions, or they kind of went nuts for some reason, and they realized that the naked monkeys were easy prey. They can't fight, they can't run, so you're just going to grab them and go eat them. And they started hunting humans almost exclusively. And we consider these lions, just because they've killed, 30 people? Huge monsters. They're huge monsters because they killed 30 people. Now, how many fucking life forms did I kill just traipsing through the bushes? You know, I'm stepping on tadpoles or swatting mosquitoes.
You're Godzilla and whole fucking civilization, say.
Right? Or
King Kong on my way through here.
And I'm just a guy traipsing through the bush. I'm not a guy with a front end loader. I'm not a guy with, Jesus Christ, a strip mining enterprise or any of that stuff, right? Now, we are those monsters in a lot of ways. Yep. But that monstrosity has allowed us our superiority. And we kind of have this idea of dominion over nature, which is very biblical. It says in the Bible, hey, you have dominion over nature. Go give her. Fucking give her, you know?
But again, I don't think anywhere it says that you should abuse that, right? So you can have dominion over it. That you can be a just lord. You can have villages that are full of people that are fed and educated, right?
Benevolent dictatorships.
Exactly, or you can be cruel, and I think that's kind of the point of it, right? Look at, you have all this control over all these other things, and they're sentient too, and they have souls or whatever you think. A deer's got one, and then it's how are you going to treat those things? How are you going to interact with them? And then if there is again some sort of go around system, maybe that dictates where you end up on the next one, or you just get stuck back on this again going, okay, well, this is the world you created through your actions the last go around. Now you got to live in it again. You're going to continue to piss your bed, or you're going to fucking get up like a big boy.
Well, and that can happen day after day after day on the microcosmic level. Like, what are you going to do today that you'll be proud of tomorrow that makes you a better human tomorrow?
Well, and that actually was something I written down earlier that you hit right on the head. The idea of, like, playing different characters throughout life.
It's funny. You're bringing this stuff up, and I wrote down all these notes from my animus class, and I'm like, maybe we could touch on this today. And that's exactly
you're
what
putting it out in the universe, man. That must be the
yeah.
case, because it's I kind of like that concept. Like you said, like every morning you're starting over. I mean, you still carry with you the things that happened previously, and you still may have anticipation about what you think is going to happen in the future. But throughout life, you're going to have things that some things you just don't ever remember again. You either blocked it out or wiped it out or just had no fucking use for it. So then once a person gets control over that, you can kind of decide, okay, well, does this shit that happened yesterday still going to determine who I am today, or is it going to, if it doesn't help me, it's not coming with me. And then that's the idea to me of getting to play different characters throughout your life. You know, there is nothing in this fucking world saying that if you decide tomorrow you want to go drive stunt motorcycles in fucking Delhi, India, and do them circle loop things those guys do, you can get a plane ticket and do that.
Yes, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
We can all do those things. It's hard because we make all these fucking reasons right now. But realistically, those are just imaginary constraints. And a lot of times, what a person does say, I want to go and fucking do this crazy, insane thing. Even just saying it out loud to people that you think are going to have issue with. A lot of times, you go, no, now's the perfect time to do that. This is when you should do that crazy asshole fucking thing.
But it doesn't even need to be crazy.
No,
I want to be able
I prefer crazy asshole thing, though, if you're going to do something.
I want to be able to sing and dance without getting my ass kicked.
Fair enough. There you go. There you go. Right? Use imaginary constraints that without getting my ass kicked, right?
Yeah.
Do it right now. Ain't nobody in this room can beat you up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, and that's the thing. Because I'm going to pull out some quotes from my animus course, which really put this on the head. It's interesting. So the one guy, our coach, he asked, like, does the human society and environment reflect the forest environment? Is there a rich, balanced ecosystem or an imbalance of dominance like a monocrop? Because in our human, or even our consciousness, is there a balance of that ecosystem, or is it like one dominant thing that you have to be? And then he's like, within the human consciousness experience, you could find all of the animal spirits, all the natural elementals, all gods and hierarchies within us. And to deny ourselves in others or others in ourselves is a disservice to our ecological nature as a whole integrated unit. Being human as a form, we can access all of the ancient and young wisdom if we can step outside our cultural conditioning and drop into a connection on an intuitive level. So that's kind of animism in a nutshell. That, like, we were talking about our animal spirits. Like, we do a meditation, and what animal comes to you? Like, out of like the ether, out of your creative unconscious, which one manifests? If you ask, hey, I want an animal to come talk to me, or the animal, which one comes to me? And traditionally, I really related to a badger. Right? You can imagine
I'm
it,
going to
right?
tell you mine right after you're done this. Remind me, because I love this. Badger, yep. That checks out.
Just leave me the fuck alone. If you come by here, I'm going to bite at you. I'm not good at fighting, but I'm, you know.
No, you're fantastic at fighting. You bite the shit out. I was actually talking recently about somebody, how like they were talking about somebody, and I was like, yeah, it'd be like fighting a fucking badger. You wouldn't know which end you could grab onto.
Exactly. I'm going to bite your nuts. But then this one, all of a sudden, this weird one came into the vision, and it was a lot more of a graceful kind of like a crane or a long neck, like a swan. Like, it was a very, you know, gentle bird. And I'm like, no, you're not my power animal at all. I need that grumpy little furious, like, that's who I am. And so it was really weird where this like conflicting kind of like things were coming to me in meditation, and I'm like, well, that's really strange, because then I have to, maybe that's part of my whole thing. What's the worst that can happen with me softening my edges? What's the worst that can happen with me becoming more flexible and creating space for other people and stepping back in my dominance and aggression? What's the worst that can
happen? And in my mind, because I've looked a little bit into spirit animal kind of stuff, sometimes it is implied, like coyotes are tricksters, you know what I mean? That's an implied kind of thing, but some of it is actually reflective of their physical traits. And for my mind, if it's a long-necked bird of some sort that's long and graceful, you've also naturally got a perspective that's above everybody else in the wetland.
Well, that's
so
one
you can
way
see
of
what's going
looking
on.
at it,
So you've got a different, higher perspective than a lot of the people that are around you, and you can use it to your advantage, or you can use it to their advantage.
See, with me, like, my impression that I got from that was a lot more of a graceful and gentle energy versus that like really stoic little, like, you know, like protected, close to the ground, snarly, you know, digging the dirt. This is like
eating moles. I've
well,
seen
you know, just tear things apart, as opposed to like a more of a graceful, gentle, flowy energy, which is something that maybe I can work with, you know, or that I can work towards developing in my life. Now, it's funny, to me at least, when I get this stuff, it's my personal impressions of it. I guess that's more like Jungian dream analysis, where it's not like a keyhole's a vagina and a key's a penis. That's Freudian, right?
Okay, yeah.
The Jung idea is it's not so much what's written in a book as what it means, what you feel from that thing. You know what I mean? Like in First Nations, that they believe the coyote is the trickster. You know, that's the trickster spirit. But maybe a coyote for me is like that hyper alert, skittish kind of like, you get what you get and you get the fuck out because something bigger can come and kill you.
Real methy dog.
Yeah, it is.
That's
It's
what a coyote is.
A vicious methy dog. Yeah. Well, Manson was really big on coyote consciousness. Like living in Death Valley, he thought the coyotes were like the top of the heap, where they're constantly in a state of hyper vigilance. Like he called it Atwa, all the way alive. You know, so they're completely present and they're completely righteously paranoid. You know what I mean? And that was his idea. But you look at Manson, that guy is a fucking scraggly, you know,
righteously
dog.
paranoid. That would definitely qualify.
Especially in like a desert, as opposed to like, you know, living here is kind of interesting because there is that scrub, the bush, you know, there's all of that. So that ecosystem is different than a desert ecosystem. So one animal might act in one way in one ecosystem and then a different one the other.
Oh, you know what? That's interesting, because it kind of ties in with what I was remembering about my one spirit animal experience, kind of looking for that. I ended up, and again, wasn't on my radar at all before this, but connecting with a tiger. And it wasn't necessarily for flattering reasons, I guess. A part of what it was that I felt that like there's something that when you see a tiger out of place, it's as out of place as it can get. It's orange and black with fucking stripes. It looks like a monster.
You're not camouflaged.
You know what I mean? When you're out of place, you are so fucking out of place.
Yeah. In a jungle.
But where you're supposed to be, you're fucking invisible. You're 900 pounds and you're fucking invisible. How is that possible? And again, when we started this, I thought I was going to connect more with like North American kind of woodland animals because that's what I grew up around: a bear, or a wolf, or a deer, or a beaver, or a badger, right? Something like that. And then I started realizing why I think the connectivity to the tiger leaned more towards that than like a bear for these reasons, because like they both got teeth and claws, but a fucking tiger can control them, right? They can pull them shits back in. They can slap somebody with a paw instead of putting their claws out. Where a bear, they give you a fucking paw, you're getting claw. That's how it works, right? And I feel like that's...
Oh, really? They can't retract?
No, they're like a dog. Their claws are out all the time.
Oh, okay.
Right? So yeah, they take a swipe at you, that's what you get. So a tiger can fuck around with you. It can play with you. It can not hurt you. Whereas a bear can do the same thing and still do total damage with the same intention, right? Whereas I've known people that I know are bears. They got claws out all the time.
Okay.
And they swing on you, and it doesn't matter if it's words or a look, and it does violent damage. But that's all they can do. It doesn't matter if it's a touch or a swipe. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas being a tiger, it's like you've always got that in you, but you can fucking retract them claws, and you can be gentle with people when you want to.
See, it's weird that you think that, or that's your angle on that, because to me, the cat, right? The big cats especially, are like the apex predator. You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk about... I think I might have mentioned it on an earlier one. My daughter asked me once if monsters were real. And I'm like, if you imagine that you're sitting around a fire in, like, a jungle, and you got your huts, you know what I mean? But if you go 20 feet out into the bushes, or into the jungle, away from the fire, you might get taken away by something with claws this long and big fangs and torn apart. And that's a monster. Until our technology and our knowledge said, this is what the monster looks like. And this is how they hunt. And this is when they hunt. And this is how they kill you. They pull you up in a tree and tear you apart.
Right?
And they got names, right? Or same thing with sea monsters. Like something comes up from the bottom with big teeth and tears you apart. That's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Now, I think of the big cats as just being like the predator principle. You know what I mean? If you take the individual tigers and panthers and even house cats and you erase them all and you just think of cat, cat, it stalks, it's sharp, it's largely lonely unless it's time to mate or fight. You know what I mean? Like they're scary,
powerful,
they're
nimble at the same time.
They are the apex predator. You know what I mean? And just like sharks would be in the oceans, and they scare the fuck out of me. As a naked monkey, they scare the shit out of me.
They got a lot more tools to their advantage.
Well, even bobcats or cougars, you know what I mean? Like they'll fuck you up.
And shits is a handful.
Yeah, they'll fuck you up. So my idea with like the great cat, the big cat, I don't think I jive that well with them. You know what I mean? I just think that like you guys would fuck me up if you had a chance. Like that's that principle. But you know what? That is part of me. That predatory part is part of me as much as that rabbit that just wants to be, or the badger that wants to be left alone, or apparently the swan.
I violently want to be left alone.
Yeah, like, man, the fuck alone. But as much as maybe this emerging idea of a graceful bird that's allowed to be a graceful bird and doesn't have to be that fight, or it can just be me on the water. Relaxing in some time. So that idea that like, what is it? All animal spirits and all of these god forms are part of us if we have a functioning ecosystem in our psyche, as opposed to we are only this one, right? He talked about shape-shifting in that, where let's say I identify as a badger and suddenly I have to go in with a bunch of people that have a very, I don't know, aquatic marine vibe about them. And these people tend to, we associate with similar like minds. You know what I mean? Like you and I have a very similar like mind. Our group of friends has a similar like mind. Now, if all of a sudden I'm in with a bunch of like very chill, fishy, flowy
But
people.
dolphins hanging out.
Yeah, dolphins. Okay, let's go with that. And I'm a badger. And they're like, you kind of
like,
and you kind of have to morph to some degree and shapeshift in order to meld as much as possible with that environment that you're in. Otherwise, you'll stand out like the tiger in the city. You are not camouflaged here, and that's something I need to keep in mind. You know what I mean?
Well, and for most people, it's not as extreme as that, obviously. You don't have to change your physical fucking shit that much to actually function in that world. It's just your mental.
Yeah.
It's just your perspective. You got to change it a little bit, and all of a sudden you can fucking navigate that.
He put, I keep saying, maybe I'll look up his name if you want to look into these courses. They're really cool. I forget his name right off the bat. But he pointed out something that I thought was very, very interesting, where sometimes those people that are really, they've got a predatory animal in them, they eat up the space. You know what I mean? It's like you walk into a space like, this is all mine, this is all mine. And then all the people that are like more, they've got that like more passive animal spirits. They're just like, okay, you know, you go ahead and do it, and I'll just be over here. Hopefully you don't eat me.
Yeah.
You know? I think that's very interesting.
Shit. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's it. Well,
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, no, that's totally fucking the case.
the first class that he talked about, he's like, so do you find that you might be one of those people that takes up a lot of space when you engage with people? I'm like, yeah, now that you mention it, because I've never fucking considered it before. I guess I've been conditioned to be that guy. Yeah. And even now, I'm talking my ass off.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Well, and I find for myself, if I am conscious of me doing it, I think I'm doing it for everybody else there. You know what I mean? I'm trying to, like, you guys are more comfortable now, right? If I'm like this, you're more comfortable, you know, or you're gonna have a better time, or this is all gonna be easier, and like. And sometimes it works. You know, you're stuck in some weird, shitty situation with a bunch of strangers. And then all
I'm
of a sudden
filling the empty space with my awkward,
Yeah.
the awkward empty space with my conversation.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story.
Yeah, exactly. You guys want to be distracted for 45 minutes to whenever the fuck we get out of here? Yeah, I got you covered.
I got a couple friends that are very much like that. They want to go for suppers and stuff like that. My partner, she's pretty quiet. You know, we're yin and yang. You know, I'm the rammy guy. She's the passive person. I'm the warrior. She's the healer. And we're trying to even that out. I'm trying to teach her to be a bit more of a warrior and me to be a bit more of a healer. But we go for dinner, and I'll sit. If I don't fill that space, we're sitting in silence. And I'm not used to sitting in silence.
And you know what, Pat? Some people don't mind that, it turns out.
What the fuck's wrong with that?
I agree. But no, yeah, like some people, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's for anybody who's got an active brain. You know what I mean? If you're sitting still and you're quiet, well, it's not quiet time for me. I'm outwardly quiet. Inside, I'm doing all sorts of fucking work. I'm trying to figure out where the rest of this evening's gonna go, or I'm fucking 2-3 years away from here in my brain doing something else.
Time
you know,
traveling all over
if
the
I'm
place.
not engaging, you know, give me 30 seconds, I'll be thinking of fucking something else for sure. Where some people, that's fine. They're just like, no, I'm just comfortable, I'm just enjoying the environment, taking in this fucking meal, every bite, every fucking drink of wine. Oh, the music's playing, that's great. Whereas if I'm sitting there quietly and I'm not saying those things, probably not thinking them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's what meditation is supposed to force that on you.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, you put your mental chatter and your ego stuff on the timeout, and you be here now, right? And I think that's one of the big benefits of meditating, or in a lot of ways, psychedelics. They drag you into the now. You know what I mean? You're not really thinking about what's happening in 3 weeks when you're balls deep in how long are we here for? Oh my god, The other day when I was with B, I'm like, how long has this been? She's like, 20 minutes. How long does this last? 3 hours. Oh. And I'm like, okay, note to self, we're gonna be right here for 3 hours, But that's,
you know where you're gonna be.
Yeah, you're gonna know where you're gonna be. Now, you're talking about the tiger as an archetype, and in Japanese tattooing, the archetype, the symbol of the tiger in Japanese tattooing is that hyper masculine, bordering on aggressive energy. You know what I mean? It's like that warrior. Like that's the guys that really resonate with like a warrior ethos get the tiger tattoos.
And that's interesting because I totally understand that, but I was just picturing like my experience going through my thing, finding my spirit animal, and about how low to the ground it was for much of it. It almost felt like, as I felt this thing walking beside me, it almost felt like it was embarrassed to be what it was.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like it didn't want this. And that's why it was like right away I connected with the retracting of the claws and shit like that. Because I'm like, it's almost like having this fucking thing and not knowing how to use it properly, and then worried that you're going to use it to hurt the people around you.
Whether you like it or not.
That's it, right?
I felt
Whereas
that.
a bear, maybe, the things that are like them and can handle it, they love that. That reminds me of my old man. You know what I mean? If you can handle being around that much fucking toxicity, he's great. He's so fun. He's fucking funny. He's got a million stories. But you got to deal with them swipes. You got to deal with them pawing you up every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
And that's not how I want to be,
Well, that takes some undoing. When I was in Japan, I had my nervous breakdown. There was part of it. I felt like an oni or an ogre, in an area of enlightened people. And I'm a barbarian, and like, you aren't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You are covered in mud. You are a big barbarian. You're stomping. You are loud. You are boisterous. You smell bad. You are from a different place that doesn't belong here. And there's a lot of people that are so gentle and so like, like peace loving, not peace loving granola, but social order, and then
You're just
like,
standing there, and things are just falling off shelves around
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Touch
Bang,
it,
bang,
just
you know.
your vibration.
I can't fit in this door.
Yeah.
You know, like a bull in a china shop is what I felt like, and I guess that's very similar to that tiger element. But this whole animal spirit thing is very new to me because that's that colonial stuff. You know, I very much resonated, whether I liked it or not, with that cultural conditioning of the Abrahamic stuff, like angels, demons, that kind of like, you know, spirit hierarchy. It's a very hierarchy based thing where you're either up here and you're an enlightened individual, or you're down here and you're unenlightened. And I think that's really a dangerous attitude to take. Because one of the things that we talk about in the animist stuff is diversity of form, sacred differences. You know, where you're different than me, you appear different than me, you might be a different animal than me, but what's to say that one form is superior to others? You know, everything has its purpose in an ecosystem, from the bottom to the top, right? And I carry that over lately. I've been noticing a lot. Who's to say one form of morality or ethics or politics is superior to another form of morality or ethics or politics? Because everything has its place. Nuance and context come into play. Now, my personal value system, I would like to think that everybody has something to offer. But then there's this other side, which isn't without value, that says, you know what, there's real pieces of shit out there that just would be better if we fucking eliminated them from the equation. You know, how can... You know, in some ways, the predator, like the real fucking predator, the bad guy.
That's a shark in my mind.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
maybe,
Like, they're endless killing machines. They don't seem to have feelings. They can't stop. They fucking
Yes,
die.
that's their
dead eyes.
Now consider the fact that the shark is a natural part of the ecosystem that culls off the unnecessary elements.
Yeah,
and the entire ecosystem falls apart without the predator. So that aspect of the predator is very much part of that natural ecosystem.
Well, and what Bible story doesn't have a bad guy in it?
Right?
How does anybody else learn a lesson if you don't got a bad guy?
But you either have good or bad, and bad is at the bottom and good is at the top. The prey, the martyr, is at the top. Jesus, you know. And then you've got fucking, the Roman soldiers are at the bottom. You know what I mean? They're the bad guys. Or, you know, Judas is at the bottom. But, like, I think that's a weird hierarchy that may or may not be so accurate. Which is tough, because my personal program is... You know, I want to be better tomorrow than I was today. I want to try to strive towards health, both physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. I want to be fit. I want to, you know, be strong. I want to be healthy. I want to be proactive. I want to struggle towards being the best version of me, which is that climbing that ladder, climbing that pyramid to the top, and then you realize that there's another pyramid you got to climb to the top, and then you realize there's another pyramid you got to climb to the top. Now that's that whole Jacob's ladder idea, where you're never continually refined enough to be that perfect individual. But what's wrong with the guy that likes to get laid and have drinks and to get into some debauchery and maybe get in a fist fight and ride fast motorcycles and swear? Now, to a lot of people, that's low-life dregs. We don't associate with that. It's not necessarily immoral, but that's low class, and we're high class. So a lot of people would now, in the political spectrum, that's problematic behavior. I don't like your language. I don't like your hobbies. I don't like your sexuality. I don't like your stuff. We're up here and you're down here. Well, shit, you wouldn't even be up there.
But it's only for right now.
Yeah,
you know, it's for a minute, it's for an hour, it's for a week, it's for a lifetime, but it's only for right now. You know what I mean?
A lifetime of right now.
Well, and I think that ties back into, like, if there is a sense of reincarnation of some sort, then that was their opportunity to be the bad guy in a narrative. You get to experience what it is to be the bad guy in a narrative.
Yeah.
And then you keep doing this long enough, eventually you're going to figure out how it is to be the good guy on that side of the story, right?
Yeah. I couldn't rent a place to find a tattoo shop. They wouldn't rent to us because they said it was all going to be bikers and outlaws and prostitutes in there. And then
check.
And landlords didn't want to rent to us, right? Yeah. Well, now all of a sudden tattooing is the trending thing, and like punk rock is trending, and sex work is now. I'm a sex worker. You can't tell me what to do. Yeah, no shit. So now the bikers and the scumbags and the prostitutes are trending. So now people want us in their restaurants because we're lowlives. Like, when did this shift happen?
Well,
that pendulum swing.
I think it's all cyclical, my baby.
Yeah.
Because like shit, like even the pandemic, we had one 100 goddamn years ago. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying, like, we keep getting to go through these things. We wait around long enough. If you didn't do it right the first time, you're gonna get to do it again and again and again, and different variations with the same kind of shit.
See, something I'm seeing a lot of with this whole idea of superiority and superiority of morality is a denigration of strength culture. Where we're actually, or demonization of strength culture. Those people that value strength, they value stoicism, they value resilience, are increasingly, that's toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? But then that's not to say that we shouldn't value, emotionality or fragility or sensitivity. But those people that are like, no, I'm going to work on my strength. I'm going to be, a man. I'm going to be able to handle life's challenges and overcome overcome challenges with struggle and be a better person, are considered increasingly toxic. These are toxic things. While there seems to be an empathy culture which is being put on a pedestal, and that empathy culture values like emotionality, fragility, passivity, introversion, like, I need to be protected, while those people that might be more stoic or resilient or assertive or extroverted are considered, we don't like that. You are...
Well, okay, to be fair to that, though, I don't know that it's those traits that they have that much of an issue with that. That's just the manifestation of it that they can point to because of the negative shit that goes along with that. A lot of times people who are powerful and big and strong...
They tend to be bullies?
That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
It tends to be that's how they continue to be in their personal and their work relationships and their romantic relationships, and then that, in the real world, physically becomes things that are negative and toxic, right? But
if taken to an extreme.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And that's and it's extremists screaming about extremists.
Yeah.
Right? It's the most extreme version of being empathetic, screaming about the ones who are not. Right.
Well, I see that they're screaming about centrists being extremists. That's the thing. Like where. So yeah, you're toxic. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. You're toxic. You have to be a fascist. Or the other side, where these ultra right, where it's like, sorry, man, I don't believe that we should be hunting the homeless. You communist! Like, well, fuck. There's a middle ground here. social justice and social programs
and all
for
those
the poor.
extremists. It's very rare. You know what I mean? Like people are extremists when they're young. And then maybe in their 30s, and then maybe in their midlife it starts. But it's very rare you get someone who's 80, 90 years old who's still a fucking extremist because they've lived enough life by that point that they've seen actual extremism on the other side. They've seen what real toxicity looks like compared to what they imagined. And then they go, oh, fuck, I guess I was kind of wrong on that. And they eventually wheel it back. It's very rare you see anybody who maintains those beliefs throughout their lifetime unless they stay very sheltered. That's that fucking Dave Chappelle skit with the blind white supremacist.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's it. That shit only exists as long as you stay sheltered. But as soon as you have to interact with everybody else, well, then it all disappears.
So much Dave Chappelle I'd love to quote, but you can't. You can't.
We just do one thing where it's just us watching. It's like, let's just watch more clips. And here's another one.
Here's another Dave Chappelle. But yeah, I think that's super valid. Where and also people that have come from very toxic environments, when they start becoming moderate, they know what real toxicity looks like. And when they run into people saying you're toxic.
Yeah. Well, and how frustrating is it for you as myself? It's frustrating for me when I'm trying to work on something and then somebody comes to me and goes like exactly that situation. I like the way you raised your voice there. That was a little toxic. And in my head, I'm just picturing smashing every single fucking person's face off every fucking bar stool in this place. Are you kidding me right now? Yeah. I raised my voice slightly about this and you think that's a big god? You know what I mean? I've worked on this for fucking years. Yeah,
I'm only talking fast. Yeah. I'm only talking fast. I'm not throwing anything. I'm not like hopping up and down.
But again, that comes back. That's almost full circle for me because the problem I have with that is, again, they're not understanding what it is I'm trying to say generally. They're usually caught up in whatever, well, but your energy was like this or your volume was like this, and that's not me not being understood properly. And again, I'm trying to put out into the world what I want to be understood for, and you're not getting it because of the things you're hung up on about my volume or whatever the fuck it is. And again, that's on me because if I really want to be understood, I should make my shit palatable to whoever I want to understand it. If I don't give a fuck that somebody understands or not, I can do it however I want. But if I want you to understand me, it's kind of is on me.
I need to shape shift to match your energy.
I got to go from Badger to fucking Swan or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense. That makes total sense. You need to know your audience.
That's on me at
communicate,
that point, right? Well, if I still do that and I do my best, and they're still being ignorant with me, and they still can't, they're still going, no, you're toxic, whatever.
Poking
it is.
the badger with a stick.
Then continue on your way. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna figure this out eventually. I don't have to be the one to teach you the lesson about this, but you're gonna find it from somebody else.
Yeah.
You're gonna do this to somebody else who is not the gentleman that I am, and they're gonna ruin your entire fucking universe about what you think toxicity is, and all of a sudden you're gonna go, oh fuck, I didn't know it could be like that.
You you think I'm toxic, I'll introduce you to some of my friends that are like bashing, like they are not nice people and they have not done the self-work to become a better human being. And this is where my confliction comes into place, my personal confliction, where my progress of being a better human being ties into that idea of Jacob's ladder, where climbing that moral and ethical and spiritual and emotional ladder to become a better person and trying to work on myself, which puts me at a certain level of peace, healing, evolution, whatever you want to fucking call it. And then I still engage with like people in like the dregs that are like, fuck it, I don't care. You say anything wrong before that
and
sentence.
they're pulling on your pant leg, trying to yank you down a couple ladder rungs.
But then there's these people that are up here. They're like, you're a fucking primitive. You're a primitive. Well, okay, I'm glad that your platitude up here is allowed to be so superior to me down here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Am I allowed to feel superior to people below me? No, that's toxic. And I find that really interesting, where I like, okay, I'm at the bit of healing and the bit of understanding and the bit of compassion I am because I've worked my ass off through discipline and through healing and forgiveness and compassion to work on myself, right? And I'm not judging those people that don't want to do any of that stuff, that are still in very quote-unquote toxic places, because that's where they're at. You engage with those people.
I think that's me. Right now I am, yeah.
If you feel that way, that's where you're at. But, I feel that way a
be.
ton in the circles that I hang out with, because I hang out with a lot of really progressive left, well, at least especially online, but these people that are very progressively left. And I'm like, sorry, guys, I don't necessarily agree with all of what you're saying. You know what I mean? I'm kind of more center left, or even kind of chaotic, where in a lot of my ways, I really believe in the personal responsibility to work on your own shit. And if you don't want to work on your own shit, is it my job to like handle you with kid gloves? Is it my job to give you like the slip and slide to a better world? Or do I say, fucking pick yourself up, dust yourself off, let's get going. We got fucking work to do, buddy, in a compassionate way.
And that depends on what you're here to do.
Yeah.
Are you here to get something done? Or are you here to help somebody else on their journey? Again, I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying that gets to be our whole bigger play in this whole game. Like, again, what character are we playing? What character are you to that person? Are you a teacher? Are you a fucking hammer? Are you, you know what I mean? Are you a guide?
Or are we responsible for healing anybody else, or just ourselves? Because am I being selfish if I prioritize my self-healing and my self-success? Yeah. Or at what point do I say, okay, I'm healed and I'm successful enough. Now it's my job and obligation to make sure everybody else is healed and successful.
Sure.
Right? And
I think honestly, if you're being honest with yourself while you're going along that journey, you'll find those spots where that is. You know what I mean? Like, it'll become apparent to you. I don't think there's rules for any of this, that you do X amount of this and then you can help somebody else, or you've done enough work on yourself, you can do it. It's kind of like, what fucking works for you, right? And it'll never be over.
Well, Carl Jung has the principle of the wounded healer. I still have an arrow stuck in my side, but I know I can get yours out. I'll help you with that, and
right? While you're bleeding to death.
Yeah, I'll still work on this when I get a minute. I'm working on it. I'm starting to heal, but here I can help you with yours. And I know what that feels like because I've been there and I've done that. So I can help people that have suffered the same arrows and slings of arrows of tragic misfortune as I have. Now, then there's like this idea. Let's frame it this way. A privileged individual with all the money and the opportunities to go to a high-end college and get their addictions counselor degree. Or they get a psychology degree and they decide they're going to be an addictions counselor. Have you ever smoked crack, buddy? As opposed to somebody who's come up from the bottom who's like, holy fuck. And, they went through a community college course that helped them, get their shit together. And they say, hey, man, I've crawled around on my carpet looking for that last shard of meth to smoke. I know what it's like, and this is what you're going through because I've been through it. Now, these are coming from two different vantage points. And as an ex-addict, sitting in a room with a person with zero life skills, you can't relate to my struggle. I just read a great article.
But isn't it interesting, though, that because what really happens is in that scenario is they're going to talk to you, and the gentleman who's been an addict for years and lived throughout, he's going to talk to you, and you guys can say the exact same words to you, but this one has much less value to you. You know what I mean? And that's just interesting. And I'm not judging
yeah.
that.
Well,
I'm just saying that's interesting because that's kind of how we're programmed. It's like you can just say what you want, but if I don't think that there's honesty behind it, or or that I can believe the truth you're trying to tell me because I think you've experienced it, well then I don't necessarily believe it. I have to make it personal to me, and if you've made it personal to you, well then I can connect with that. But if you've never had that, I don't believe you.
one's coming from a theoretical, book-learned vantage point.
Yeah.
They said in the book, this is how it goes, so I'm supposed to tell you this.
Yeah.
And the other is, man, I've been there. And, you know, the book
But
tells me
but
this.
It's still the same advice.
Maybe.
More often than not, still the
Yeah,
same advice.
yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like the Bible. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like it's if you believe that, then there's value to it. If you believe who put it out there, then there's value to it. And if you don't, then you don't. You can still hear the same story from somebody else, and then they'll go, "Oh no, I guess I got value to it now." It's weird how we have to connect with that personal level for these things that are not personal truths.
On the same token, I read this article, and it was a really good article, and it was calling out white people that say that they can relate to Aboriginal trauma and want to give solutions on strategies on coping with trauma or coping with prejudice or coping with like poverty, and they say, we don't want your fucking advice. I don't care how much education you got when you swoop down to our communities and you want to help us. We don't want your fucking advice because you haven't lived our trauma.
Well, and honestly, even if you were raised in the exact same circumstances, but in a white neighborhood instead of a native neighborhood, you still don't have this.
It's
You
not
can
the same
I was
trauma.
just as poor, and then my uncle touched me, and you can do all that, but it's still not the same.
Yes.
It's still not the same.
There's that missing
You can still
aspect.
sometimes blend in and assimilate when you want to. You can dress appropriately to get in with the rest of the flock. It's still not an opportunity.
You didn't grow up with those same circumstances. And to me, that is mirrored by the book-learned addictions counselor who hasn't had the same lived experience. Sure. And
Well, it's also like men trying to explain women. Like,
yeah, let me tell you about feminism.
Yeah,
This is what needs to happen.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, no.
as opposed to listening.
Well,
So,
right? and then apply it. Not just listen too. Not just, oh, that's what you think. Okay, that's interesting. Start going, okay, well, that's what they fucking think when I'm saying or doing these things, or I see someone else doing it. How do I rectify that? Instead of just going, okay, it's valid, it exists. Okay, well, what are you gonna do to fix it though, right? You know, because you're still kind of part of the issue.
my own program, for what it's worth, you know, I got my own theories, but my own program is shutting up and listening more. And shutting up and hearing what other people say and sharing with people that are like me what I hear other people say. I could,
Kind of like a little interpreter.
A little
'Cause
bit.
Sometimes some people just shut their ears. They hear somebody that's so far away from them in their thinking, they can't hear any of it. Oh, you're just one of them. You're just one of them.
yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's just it. I'm not a fucking communist. You know what I mean? I'm not an I kind of an anti-racist. But, you know, I want to build bridges and help people communicate. So I'll listen to what women are telling me about fucking toxic dudes, or I'll listen to what my indigenous friends are talking about colonialism or settler culture, and I'll try and translate it to my white dude friends in a way that's a little more palatable, because they know that I'm not like crazy commie feminist, you know, guy who's gonna
Well,
vegan.
and a lot of them aren't fundamentally fucking assholes.
No, I
they
don't
just
think so.
sometimes think assholey things because they haven't understood someone else's perspective on that. And then as soon as you can explain it to them in a way that makes sense, any of my friends, they'll go, "Oh fuck, I didn't think of it like that. Oh, I never realized that's how that was." And it's like, and no shade on them. How would you? If you didn't live it and no one explained it to you, how would you understand it, right?
We are all victims of cultural conditioning. All of it. All of us are victims of cultural. What a man is supposed to do, what a woman's
Yeah,
supposed
even if you're
to do.
doing well and you're benefiting from these structures
That's
of
your
cultural
conditioning told you that to jump through these hoops.
even if you're doing great, how many leashes do you feel are pulling on your fucking neck every day?
Yes, 100%.
Different directions.
This is what makes me a successful citizen in this society. This is what makes me a failure in this society. You know, as a man, as a father, as a a business owner, as an employee. These are the standards, and we're all victimized by the culture. You know, until we decide to do that self work and say, "Holy fuck, what can I do to change that script?" And I don't think there's a lot of people that are very interested. And if the script is working for you, why change it? I've got money, I've got a boat, I've got a house, I've got like these things. I've got the things. Society worked for me. Why would I want it to change? And that's what a lot of these people are contending against. You know?
And it always worked for you until that Armageddon apocalypse moment where it doesn't anymore.
Or because when all of a sudden all these other people say, "Guess what? Your system's fucked."
Yep.
Well, the system that makes me comfortable? Yeah. Yes, the system that makes you comfortable is now going to be upheaved, and you're going to have to listen to other people, and you're going to have to do some self-evaluation, even the gross stuff that maybe you weren't right, and this system's broken, and you should give some of your stuff back, and all of that, you know. Well, I don't want to do that. Yeah. No, you don't want to, you know. It's going to suck, you know.
It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll get there.
Mm-hmm. And if you, well, you know, and you can get on board, or you can try and resist as much as you want, but it is what it is, and it doesn't necessarily. I don't think cultural change, societal change, needs to be brutally painful. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? At all. Any more than working your traumas needs to be brutally painful. Yeah. You can do it gently. You can do it compassionately. You can do it by...
As long as you haven't let those things fester so badly, they need immediate fucking attention right now, and it has to be dramatic.
Yeah,
right?
It needs to be torn open quick.
If you're continually doing baby steps, doing work, nibbling away at the problem, absolutely, right? Mm-hmm. But it's as soon as you shut that off. And again, I've experienced this throughout my life in very numerous different ways, whether it's eating habits or exercise or, you know, just on that kind of stuff, work, you know. Mm-hmm. When I'm more in tune with what I'm supposed to be doing, I do a better job, right? But when I'm not, and I'm worried about other bullshit, or I'm fucking not feeling good, well, no, I'm not going to do as good a job at that. It's all intraconnected.
Well, it's very weird. You know, we went to the gym today, and there's a new program at our gym where you have to wear a mask, right? And me, of course, I've got a black mask, and like I've got my low black hat and low black mask and my black t-shirt and my black Adidas, and I look, and I'm covered in tattoos. I bring down the property value. I am an intimidating little shadow character that walks between all of these machines, and nobody feels comfortable training next to me. Now, I look at these other people. I'm literally doing my thing, you know, and I grunt and I try and lift heavy, but I'm looking at these other people, and I can't get in my head how I could ever wear yellow shorts with a red t-shirt and some nice gray and blue shoes, and like, you know, my whatever, you know, white and pink water bottle as a guy. I'm like, black, maybe with white. These are my two options.
You should do it as a joke once.
Yeah, Halloween, you know?
Yeah.
And that says a lot about me, like the self-protective kind of element. Like, maybe it's that dark badger thing. Just leave me in the fucking shadows. Leave me alone. I'm here to do my thing. I just have to be here to do it. Then I'm going to leave, and you just back away. Leave me alone and give me my space. And it's weird because then I go to the public library. And I walk into the public library, and I'm looking around, and there's all these young native guys. And they're wearing the black flat brim hats. They've got like black hoodies, black camo shorts. You know, they're like, hey, dudes, like, why are we so similar here? You don't really feel society works for you either, you know? And it's really strange because on a real core level, I'm like, some of these kids are like, hey man, nice jacket. I'm like, thank you, you know, like, fuck, why am I clicking here as opposed to, you know, at the white guy?
You probably got more experiences in common.
I guess so, you know, we listen to the same music.
In your formative years, right?
Yeah, we listen to the same music maybe, or, you know, we got similar worldviews. The shit isn't working and I don't fit in. And that was a real wake-up call for me. I'm like, I can't be a soccer dad. Honey, you know, as much as I love you and you want to go play soccer or softball and do all that stuff, that's cool. I'll take you there, but I'm going to be way in the back. I can't relate to...
You're not getting the team jackets with your name on them?
No, the wine moms that are next door with like their nice little like blankets over their stuff, and come on, Trixie, you can do it. I'm like, not that person. I can't be that person, because I'm unpacking a lot of my own fucking hurt and my own stuff that I grew up with. And I'm just happy that I'm here. I'm happy that I'm here, but it could be a lot fucking worse. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Barely participate, but thank you for having me.
Yeah. At least I'm going to the gym as opposed to just like cracking a fucking 40 in my basement. You know what I mean? At least I'm going to a yoga class where everybody's like, what the fuck's with that guy? You know?
You're trying, goddammit.
Fucking leave me alone. I'm trying. I'm gritting my teeth. I'm coming out of my comfort zone.
Leave me alone while I come to your classes.
Well, and
everybody get out of my way while I'm at your gym.
Well, that's kind of
it. I'm very similar, though. I don't want to go out and be fucked with when you're talking to people, but I still want to do me.
I'm working on myself.
A lot of times it draws attention.
I'm trying to come out of a cocoon that I forced myself into for fucking years. And when I gotta deal with this, like, stuff of, like, who's this guy? And he looks weird. And I'm getting dirty looks. Or he didn't say the right words. Everything in me just wants to snap back up and go into that self-protective fucking zone, you know?
Because you're insecure?
I guess,
right?
Maybe, yeah.
Because if you were comfortable, you wouldn't give a shit. You put a pink blouse on and go out and fucking do some reps.
I'm working on it.
You know
I'm working on it. But that's the thing. But this is my comfort zone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, this is.
And tomorrow it's going to be different.
Yeah.
You're going to be a slightly different character.
Better or worse.
Leveled up in some areas.
Or leveled down.
I've been neglecting my areas.
or leveled down. That's another
That's
option.
what I'm saying, right?
And
you doing the work.
should I beat the shit out of myself if I wake up a lesser person, or
You know what? And the more play you put into your life, the way you think about it, because even just talking about this now, I'm like, I would never go into a video game I was playing and after playing it for hours realize that one skill level had dropped significantly because I hadn't been going to. I wouldn't get, what, you fucking piece of shit? Hey, you don't know how to fucking pick a lock anymore? What kind of fucking loser doesn't know how to do that? You know what I mean? No, you go like, fuck, okay, I gotta do a bunch of work. What quest do I have to do to go and get this fucking lock skill picked back up, and then I can go back to my thing I was doing?
If it's important.
That's what I'm saying, right?
If it's even important.
I gotta keep doing this to get in there, right? And so that's why I feel like I have to treat it, because I have trouble starting projects that I don't see an end result to.
Oh, really?
It's hard for me to do, because again, if I don't, and doing something, especially if it's a chore I really don't want to fucking do, like a car maintenance, for example, any sort of, you gotta change an alternator or some shit, fuck, I can do it. I fucking hate it. I don't want to do it. I don't look forward to it. I try to figure out how to get around it every fucking chance I get. And then if I'm going to do it, it has to be something I can do in one shot. I can't have it dangle over my fucking head, sitting there all apart for 3 weeks. It drives me insane. And like even my motorcycle right now, I've had it apart for, not running for like a year now.
Oh yeah, I hear that with my Triumph.
But luckily it's in somebody else's garage, so I don't have to fucking look at it every day, because it would drive me nuts. And then when I do go and work on it, I get frustrated and throw shit down and fucking stomp off. And I don't even know where the fuck I was started with this anyways, but yeah.
Well, the lock picking and like, you beat
oh, right,
yourself up.
building that shit. Yes, exactly. So I have to start doing that, where I'm like, you know what? Just any sort of fucking headway on this thing, even if it's, you're only going to do it once and you're not going to touch it again for 6 months, it's fine. No one else gives a shit. And again, that's in my head too, right? I mean, I kind of care, but like, nobody else is going to hold me accountable. And I'll fucking work on it when I work on it then, if I just take the steps to do it. It's those first couple steps sometimes are pretty goddamn tough.
Well, you know me really well. You know me well enough to recognize that I am hard on myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hard on others, and part of my process, I think, which I'm translating the swan in my fucking meditation, is being easier and compassionate on myself. If you didn't climb that ladder, that rung tomorrow, and you're the same place, or even if you slid down a few, that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to beat the shit out of yourself.
Well, and you still had those when you were beating the shit out of yourself. You still had fucking setbacks. You still made advancements, right? It's like, how do you want to do this fucking journey? How do you want to play this game?
I see it with a lot of people that are trying to get sober, when they might have a bump or a relapse, and they're like, fuck me, you know, I don't deserve any, I don't deserve love, I'm a fucking failure. Well, man, that's a speed bump. It's not a stop sign. It's not a roadblock. That's a speed bump. Okay, yeah, you like the speed bump. Anyway, so
that's just a speed rail. Don't worry, that's what everybody says, right?
Speed rails. So, you know, and that's just it. It's just a speed bump. It's not a roadblock, and you don't need to shut everything down and break your controller and smash the entire TV because you had one hiccup. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of me being compassionate and allowing myself to try edibles. I don't have to be so rigidly sober. I don't have to be so rigidly this and rigidly that. And the more I'm able to relax a little bit of that, not to the point where I'm a maniac like I used to be, because that was the opposite. I was balls deep in debauchery versus balls deep in aestheticism, or I don't know what it is. I want to the ascetic monks, the asceticism. That's it. Okay. Balls deep in asceticism, where nothing's allowed, rigid monastic kind of fucking discipline, versus everything's allowed. I'm fucking doing it all, you know, in my nose, up here, you know, all that, you know. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Pick a hole. I'm stuffing it full.
Fucking let's give her. And so now I'm trying to find that balance point, that middle point between extreme debauchery and extreme rigid discipline, right? And forgive myself and allowing that compassion, because if you love yourself, you're allowed joy as much as you're allowed discipline, you know.
Well, and I feel like for myself, when I'm swinging between those two, I get to like where, well, I'll compare myself to someone who does something professionally when I'm starting to do it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, I've done it for 25 years, but I'm still going to hold myself to that same level and just think I'm fucking garbage. Oh, I'm terrible. This is the worst I've ever been, eh? And like when I'm going down the street, 90% of the people I pass have no idea how to do this thing, let alone could do it as well. But in my head, I'm still like, no, I'm fucking garbage. I couldn't even watch myself do this. So then when I go the opposite way, it's like, well, if I'm fucking garbage and I can't be excellent, how bad can I be?
Yeah,
you know,
why do it at all?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's go right the fucking opposite direction then. And that sucks. I don't want to do that.
I get that from social media so much, and I have to really check myself, because I follow professional kettlebell coaches. Thanks. Professional kettlebell coaches, fucking jacked power lifters, my favorite world famous high-end tattoo artists, and everything I see them doing, I'm like, I'll never be able to do that. Right. Fuck it. Why do I do this at all? I'm gonna drop it and walk away. You know what I mean? But I'm better than I was yesterday.
True.
You know what I mean? And the people that are coming to me for coaching or the people that are coming to me for tattooing, they're stoked. They're leaving happy. Yeah. I don't need to be the guy from fucking Switzerland.
Yeah. No, right?
Who's a world famous tattooer.
But you got it in you.
Well,
when you see it, that's the problem for me, is when I see stuff that I know, like, that I'm comfortable doing, or I feel like I'm skilled at, and then I see somebody else doing it and they're like very high level, and I'm kind of like, I could hang. You know what I mean?
I recognize my limitations.
Get there, you know, but then it's like I threw all the other shit and thought, well, you didn't do it long enough, or you didn't fucking put the work in on this, and all the other things that drag myself down. But that kind of fucks with me a little bit too. Like, it's like going to see live music. You know what I mean? A lot of times I'm just kind of jealous. You know what I mean? Like,
but there's a place to appreciate it.
Bullshit. I know that's my problem. Is I need to do that because I feel like a lot of people would follow the same kind of shit like you do online and be inspired by that. See that and go, oh wow, that's what art can be. That's what a body can look like. Okay, I got something to work towards. Not as I see it and I'm like, fuck, well, I'll never get there.
Well, I need to interject there because, you know, there's genetics that come into play. There's natural ability that's come into play. There's years of training. So if, let's say, I started training to be the artist that somebody's been training since he was 3.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I might get there when I'm 90. Yeah. Like,
and if they die now.
Yes. Yeah.
So they can't continue to get better. Yeah.
Recognizing my limitations is very important. And respecting that in a very, you know, compassionate way. Like, I can love basketball. I could love pro basketball. I could play like a motherfucker. I'm always going to be the short, thick guy that's not going to be able to like slam because, you know, I'm not that guy. Yeah. Genetics, my build, you know, and recognizing my limitations are very important where I've come to grips with the fact that I can't always reach the top shelf without a step. No matter how much my dream is to reach the top shelf, I won't necessarily get there. So I think that there's a balance, you know. Yeah. I can be inspired to be the best I can be, but I'm never going to be that thing.
Well, I think that's what people who... I've never experienced this, but are content or happy. I think that's how they operate.
Is that what contentment is?
They can look at the extremes of situations and go like, well, you know what? As long as I'm doing my best me, and that inspires me, and I'm like, you know what? I'll keep trying. You know?
I love that we're like, I think that's what contentment is.
I've heard of this
concept. The best.
I've tasted it. I maybe even smelt it once, but I don't know that I've experienced it.
Well, and I think it's hilarious that we sit here and we unpack what healthiness is supposed to look like. So much. Like, is that what healthy people do?
Hey, and everybody else is like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? You didn't know that? That's everyone else's functioning.
Yeah, that's functioning adulthood.
Yeah.
My one buddy online, he shared one of the podcast links, and he's like, it's weird, but it's good.
Is it to your sex tape? Is that what
yeah, sex tape. It's weird, but it's good.
Taking the low hanging fruit there.
It's nothing that you don't necessarily want to strive towards, but you know, it works for them, I guess. So but I'm also getting a lot of good feedback on what we're doing here, you know. So that's cool. Good. Some people are interested. Thank you guys for actually enduring us, listening to us, tolerating us.
Drink. It did remind me. There's a story I don't know if I've ever told on here before. It's kind of an anticlimactic story, but you were mentioning doing psychedelics, and I have a mushroom story that I hope doesn't scare you, but in the end, it ends up being fine. Have I ever told you this one?
I don't know.
Fuck. I'm sure I've told it to you, but anyways. Years ago, going to a concert at like whatever Sass Place is called now, and buddy shows up. He's like, "Hey, I got these fucking extra tickets. Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. I don't give a shit about this band, but I'll go." So there's 4 of us going. There's me and another buddy in the back seat of the car, buddy in the passenger seat, and then this friend of ours, Fuzzy. She's driving. Well, the rest of us all eat a whole fuck ton of mushrooms before we leave the house driving to this thing. And Fuzzy's like, "Well, I'm not going to be able to eat any mushrooms and drive on the way over there, so I'm just going to drink on the way." And she's this little tiny chick, and she's drinking fucking whiskey. Oh, yeah. Drinking whiskey straight out of the bottle, like not mixing it at all, while driving. And we end up getting stuck in traffic outside the concert place for like 40 minutes, because that's how fucking busy it was. She gets out and pisses, like, in the traffic while we're there. That's how drunk she is before we even get to the venue. And we're all just starting to be like, oh, yeah, these mushrooms are kicking in, hey? Right on.
This is going to happen.
So I remember getting to the venue, and I was just so hot. I had my sweater, I'd taken it off, and I had the hood just hanging on my head, so it's flowing behind me like a cape. And, like, I'm 26 or 27 years old probably at this time, like, or too old to be walking around like a fucking 5-year-old with your sweater dangling off the back of you like a cape, and I'm zooming around having just the best time.
I'm a fucking superhero anyway.
Yeah, man, that's what it felt like. So we're just in the zone, everything's going good. We fucking we go to get to our seats, and we have to go up this really steep concrete seating, to climb up there. So we're up like 2 levels. So we get up our 2 levels, and the 3 of us are all fucking sitting there. We're like, where's Fuzzy? And she comes around the corner. She comes all the way up. And she's like, oh, shit, I was going to get drinks. And she turns around and goes to walk back down the stairs and trips and falls 2 fucking flights, just ass over tea kettle, slams into this fucking railing at the end. Hey, we're all like, oh, she's dead. Fuzzy died.
Yeah.
And then she pops up right away because she's loaded, so she's fine, hey, and then it fucks off.
Turns your bones to rubber.
Yeah, so like everything's kind of like coming at me, and I'm a little freaked out, but I'm not, it's not too bad. And then we're sitting there, and it starts getting dark, and
Everything's coming at me.
I'm getting a little warm, and my hands feel like I've got fucking baseball gloves on. You know what I mean? Like my fingers feel enormous, and I can't really feel the outline of anything. Well, then all of a sudden I start smelling shit, and I'm like, somebody's shitting right around here. Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden I'm like, I think it's me. I think I'm the one who shit. And I am like fucking petrified, right? So I'm trying to like just kind of move around a little bit.
If I get up, is this going to get worse
see
or
what
better?
I can feel, hey, and I'm kind of like, well, I can't really tell. I'm all hot and warm right now, and it's summertime, and I'm kind of moist to begin with, and like I can't really feel anything, so I'm kind of rooting around under my crotch through my pants, and I still can't really like make out if I shit my pants or not. So then I'm like, oh fuck! I turn to my buddy Scott, and I'm like, hey Scott, man, you ever heard of anybody shitting their pants like while they're on mushrooms? And he goes, oh yeah, fuck, I got this one buddy shits his pants all the time. He says, he'll be out picking them and it'll just leach right through the gloves. He'll shit his pants out in the bush. I'm like, are you fucking serious? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. You never heard of that? I'm like, ah, fuck. Okay, that's a thing that happens. Well, I think I gotta go. I think I gotta take off. And he's like, what do you mean? The fucking show's just starting. And I'm like, pretty sure I shit my pants, man. I can't get around this. And like all in my head, I'm like, I'm just gonna tie my fucking sweater around my waist and I'll walk out like that. No one's gonna notice, right? And so he keeps trying to talk me down. He's like, no, you didn't shit your pants. I'm like, dude, I don't know how you know that I didn't shit my pants because I don't know that and I'm in them, you know? So finally, I get enough courage and I reach down in the back, hey, and then pull my hand out being like, don't be poop, don't be poop, don't be poop, hey? And my hand's totally clean and clear and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And I had a really good evening after that. But that's like one of the most terrifying experiences. If you think you shit your pants and you gotta reach down the back and you're just like, oh God, please don't be like anything because what do you do now? It's on your fucking hand and
yeah, God forbid, you know, and you're tripping balls.
Exactly.
First time I ever saw a cross-dressing man, and the first time I ever saw a command start car, I was fucking on mushrooms in the same night. And
how far in the future did these mushrooms take?
Yeah, I'm like, we're walking by an empty car that starts up, and I'm like, what the fuck? And everybody's like, what? We're all just like, yeah. And then this couple were just laughing, walking towards us. And then right down the corner, we met a cross-dresser. And I'm like, I think that's a guy. And like, yeah, it was like pretty intense, you know.
A lot of firsts.
Yeah, a lot of firsts and different firsts for me, you know. That was
and like ones where you're like, okay, I think everything around me is a little bit fucked. Well, now there's cars that are starting on their own. Come on, guys.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like this is like too much. Yeah, too much. And yeah. I remember at Sass Punk Festival. This is, I think, the last time I even tried mushrooms. Well, aside from the microdosing, but you know, I was like right in addiction. I was smoking speed all day. I was taking off in between our set from Sass Punk Festival behind the venue in the bushes, smoking like puddles. And the only thing I had done all day was drink alcohol and smoke speed. That was it. And my buddy and I, we brought up a big cooler of booze. And so after the gig, we all go back to the campsite where the big party's happening, bonfires and shit like that. And it starts off pretty fucking cool. And then my buddy Stevie, who used to play drums in Poser Disposer, he's like, Pat, you want some of these? And he hands me a handful of mushrooms. I don't even fucking know how much is in there. I just pushed them all in my mouth. And it was like a mouthful. And I start chugging it back and chewing with the beer that I'm on. And I hadn't eaten anything all day. So the only thing in my guts was booze and these mushrooms. So about 15 minutes later...
No, that speed you smoked.
Yeah, well, that's not in my guts. That's just in my lungs.
It's in your
right?
general system.
Oh, yeah. So all of a sudden... and that's just it. That puts you in a pretty grimy place, you know? Smoking a lot of speed does it. It's not the most holistic environment for you
puts
to...
you in a pretty grimy place.
So I get the vibrating, and I'm like, oh, this shit's coming on. I remember this feeling. I suddenly remember what I did. I did mushrooms. I did a lot of mushrooms. I'm going to be high a lot tonight. And I'm like, no. So I fucking make a beeline into the bushes, and I'm like, I have to puke. And I look around the meadow that I'm in, and all of the grass is glowing, and I can start seeing the droplets of water of dew on this. I'm like, no, this isn't going to be good. And I'm like, I start kind of heaving, and I'm like, no, I'm going to look like a raccoon. I can't puke. I'm going to look like a raccoon. My eyes are going to bruise. I'm like, fuck this. So
I'm gonna look like a raccoon.
I fucking make a beeline for my station wagon. I pull all the booze out and I fucking put a blanket over my head and I sit in the back of the station wagon for like 5 hours yelling "Go away" at anybody that comes near me. Stevie's like, "Pat, come connect with me." I'm like, "You did this to me. You did this."
You're the reason I'm here.
And every once in a while I hear a whisper. It's like, "Pat's on mushrooms in the back of the car." I'm like, "Just take the booze and fuck off." And like, yeah, that was the last
Mushrooms,
time.
I'm not deaf, you piece of
Yeah,
shit.
right. Just go away. Yeah. So that was my last experience, and I took way too many. I just went to dark side of the moon again, and now I'm comfortable. Probably 18, 20 years later, with just taking a microdose, which is like, a point of a gram. Like, I think it's 1.25 points, or what is it? 0.125 of a gram.
Very small, man.
Very, and it gives you a little bit of niacin with the mix that I take, so it goes through your system. All it feels like is a very gradual kind of coming on. You get a little more alert, a little more conscientious.
You don't get the tracers and the visuals. and shit like
No,
that.
you don't get high. Well, I notice my consciousness shifting, but I think that's because I'm sober 99.9% of the time. That any little shift, like Red Bull, I feel it.
Sure.
Coffee, I feel it. So this, I feel it. But I just recently learned that psilocybin is a neurogenesis agent, where it legitimately helps your neurons make new neural connections, and so it builds your brain connectivity.
I thought I'd read something about that with dementia patients. That was something they were trying to do, is microdose with that, and I didn't know that was necessarily the reason.
Yep.
But
Well, maybe not the reason,
but I
but
mean,
it does it.
yeah, no, that's a great reason if it rebuilds your fucking brain.
There was a study, actually. Everybody's favorite philosopher, Jordan Peterson, was talking about psychedelics, and he quoted the study where they gave psilocybin to terminal cancer patients that signed up for one of those MK Ultra, experiments.
Right.
Do you want to try these out? And after a significant psychedelic experience, they no longer feared their death. And there were not all of them, but like a large percentage of them were no longer in fear of what was going to happen after they passed, which is incredible. And this is like a double-blind, peer-reviewed, like scientific study that says cancer patients, their perception of death and afterlife changed significantly after a psilocybin trip, which is fucking crazy,
And what happens to almost anybody
who's actually done it.
You know what I mean?
I don't need a scientist to tell me that your perception changes after you trip balls, right? So I don't know. I'm up in the air. Maybe the next time I go up into the bushes and I'm in the creek, maybe take a half gram or a gram and see where that gets me. The connectivity that I get, because man,
become a mushroom while you're up there. Get right into the dirt.
I'm a snail man.
Finally becoming my final form as a snail man.
My ultimate form.
Get off my goddamn shell, you kids.
Yeah, is slugging around. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. Well, do we have any people coming up for future episodes or anything like that? Any plans?
I'm still waiting on my fucking hardware issue so we can.
Oh
have
yeah,
more than
yeah.
one
That's
mic
what we're waiting
running,
on. Yeah,
so.
yeah. Fuck the other
I don't
day.
think we could get anybody anytime, I guess, and just do it with this one again, and we'll all talk into it.
Fucking Jose. The other day I was trying to convince Jose just to make a surprise. Hi guys, I'm here, and I'm like, that'd be so rad, just show up, man. Knock knock, 3 p.m. Jose's here.
Sounds nice.
But, yeah,
like
he
some like Pee Wee's fucking Playhouse kind of shit.
All right, yeah. Well, yeah. That's what have you been reading? Do you want to keep going? What are we at? What do I got? Hour 45. Hour 40. Yeah. Let's go for a little one.
Yeah, well, actually, the only other thing I had written down and probably we hadn't talked about was a couple of podcasts. Tim Dillon. Just got into Tim Dillon, his podcast recently. It's fucking hilarious. He talks lots of kind of like right wing conspiracy kind of shit, and,
like QAnon,
and well, a little bit, but it's I don't know how much of it's character, how much of it's tongue in cheek, but a lot of it is he talks about these kind of crazy right wing things and seems very knowledgeable and almost like he's being pro whatever the fuck that thing is, but then still manages to rip it to shreds.
Oh, okay.
And
critical thought is a good thing.
It's interesting because he's I don't know, he's a funny fucking guy. I think if anybody's into podcasting, you check him out.
What's his name?
Tim Dillon.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing about podcasts. We do one, but I don't have the extra time to spend a couple hours and like really.
Yeah, no,
listen
like
to
for
these
me
guys.
with my job, I drive lots, so that's usually what I listen to on the highway is podcasts because you just a lot of music I listen to, I've listened to all these songs thousands of fucking times, and it doesn't help the time go by quicker when you know every single word that's coming up. Whereas with this, it kind of gets you in a zone, and all of a sudden I'm like, fuck, that was an hour.
You're having a conversation almost.
Yes,
Or
well,
you're
and
in
like
on it.
yeah, like that, like Tim Dillon, anything he does is pretty fucking funny. And that David Cho on Rogan, that was one of the best I've seen. They went like just about 4 hours, I think. And fuck, that guy's got some stories to tell. His time in the Congo and fucking trying to hunt down brontosauruses. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's a thing.
the guy's got some fucking stories. So that's definitely an interesting one to check out.
So I finally got a book that I've been waiting on for a long time. I've seen the movie on Netflix a few times, and I realized that like this movie is based on a book. And the movie's Laundromat. It's got Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas. It's about laundering money and offshore investing and the money laundering cabals. And the book is called Secrecy World, Inside the Panama Papers, Investigation of Illicit Money Networks and Global Elites by Jake Bernstein. And it's a fucking phenomenal book. I'm only, maybe 50 pages into it right now, but fuck, it lays out exactly how everybody can launder their money. And I think the more I talk about that stuff, I kind of figure I need to get my chops up on understanding the ins and outs of like, what are they called? LLCs, which is low liability corporations, where you just buy a corporation and they do nothing. And hey, I'm buying a corporation. What's it for? Oh, it's going to buy property. And you don't have to report who actually owns that corporation, but it can own assets, which is kind of like it's a buffer system that these economic elites use, and how they can shift money between trusts and corporations. And I think as a layman, it's very important for us to understand what's actually happening.
Well, and all of that is to not pay their fair share.
Yes.
All of that is to avoid tax.
It's something like, what is it? 38% of billionaires and multi-millionaires use these LLCs and like offshore banking in like the Cayman Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands and all of the Delaware, the U.S. They use it to do tax avoidance. So this book,
Secretary of Education in the U.S., Betsy DeVos, has like 9 fucking super yachts, and they're docked in the U.S., like in Ohio and shit, running Cayman Island flags.
Yeah, because they don't have to be accountable to like the local taxations, and that's the thing. These countries, they make money off of the yearly revamping of your corporate fees and stuff like that. So it makes money for them to have 11,000 or 110,000 corporations owned by random billionaires registered in their country, because each one of those pays $5,000 a year to exist, and it's revenue for like a place like Panama. You know what I mean? And this stuff was all made public by this woman, I forget her name, that released the Panama Papers, that was executed. Again, another one of those like money elite global executions, like straight up execution when she made this stuff public. So I'm reading this book, Secrecy World by Jake Bernstein. That's my new one that I'm trying to dig my way through. It's not a dry read, so I suggest.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you can get it from Amazon or Indigo, and I got it through I think Indigo or McNally Robinson. I'm trying to do my limited buying shit through Amazon right now. Fucking more money in Bezos. It's hard though.
Blowing up that Bezos.
Yeah, it's the Walmart of the internet, man. What do you need? We get it for you. It'll be at your door in 2 days, right?
Hard to argue with.
Yeah, right? Well, so is the cheap prices at Walmart. That's how they put small towns out of business, right?
Yep.
We have everything you need at 3/4 of the price that you're paying at the mom and pop down there. Why would you go to the mom and pop anymore? Right? So that's what I'm reading.
Fucking Walmart.
Fuck the rich.
Shit. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything else even marginally interesting to talk about.
That's it. Yeah.
I got nothing.
I'm all fuck. We could go on for days. I'm tapped. The fuel.
Yeah.
I need a week to refuel this.
Yeah, give us 30 seconds after these cameras shut off. We'll be here for an hour again. Hey, yeah, but you know what? I really think about this really crazy shit. Well, that's okay. So just crazy conspiracy shit real quick. Keep your eyes peeled, because there's talk that there may be more alien disclosure in September to draw attention away from the election. And again, I think even all this noise about the election in the States right now, a lot of that is distractionary bullshit, because there's people being murdered in some of these storylines right now, and I think that's the shit that's really important.
Yeah, that there's a few elephants in the room that are being distracted by like funny murder hornet stories, or look at the Antifa.
Yep.
Look over here. Look over here. Don't look over here.
Yep.
Look over there. Look over there.
Yeah, look at all this crazy rioting and things being destroyed. Like, well, how many people were killed? And you're like, oh, well, none. No, nobody's really being killed doing that. Oh, okay. But for some reason, there's fake FedEx guys trying to kill judges' families in these other stories, and people are being found dead in their fucking cells, and people are being thrown out of windows or supposedly jumping. But that's how the Russian mafia does it lots too, right? They fucking. There was, I can't remember how many Russian doctors all fell out of windows right when COVID was first breaking out, because they started reporting on it, and then all of a sudden there was 3 or 4 Russian doctors that all fell out of windows. One of them was during a meeting with government officials. How do you fall out of a window during a meeting?
Just having a smoke, trying to blow it out real far away from everybody because they're don't want to make them sick.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just being courteous, and then that's what your downfall is.
See, and that's a weird one too, where like a lot of these QAnon right wing conspiracy guys are saying that like it's really strange that there was all these riots all around the world protesting the economic, disparity between the ultra rich and the poor, and like unfair taxation. And then suddenly there was a pandemic where everybody had to get locked down for a few months. But then out of the blue, those riots started resurfacing again, and they're like, even the pandemic,
Yeah.
But you see what's happening in Portland. You see what's happening with what I consider, this is just purely conjecture from one man's point of view, an emergent police state, an emerging fascist police state, where just the veneer is being pulled off and everybody is seeing.
It's a combination of that.
Yeah, seeing what it is.
It's actually, I was just listening to a thing they were talking about the kind of officers they generally do like to pull from for that sort of thing, and it is your immigration detention people. It is your border patrol people. Those sort of people where they're already doing that job, where their whole job is about a divide between us and them, and they can make that, and they do it every day. Well, then when you bring them from a border and then you put them into a middle of a city, they can still keep doing that. It's harder for someone else who's already worked in the community and already been like an actual
a
officer
community
there.
member
versus
us versus them.
Exactly, right? Whereas one job is about integration and working with the people ideally, where the other one is like, no, I'm here to keep people out and keep these ones in.
Well, when you look at the militarization of the police,
and that's where I was going with this. That's where they pulled from for these whatever nameless fucking federal forces they're sending in with no badging on. It's from ICE, it's from Border Patrol, even some corrections. I know in Texas there was a fair number of them they sent up. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that, because it's like all these scholars that know about this and have seen it in all these despot fucking third world countries. Like, well, this is how they do it. They take ones from the prisons and they take ones from the Border Patrol, and then they bring them over here and they make them do it in the city against their own people. And it's like, oh, that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
shit. I was paying attention, and that is what's happening.
That's called a police state. And
the slippery slope.
Well, when you think about it, police should be members of the community, keeping the peace in a community. The old school slogan of serving and protecting. Now, you look at the military purpose; it's destruction of a flesh and blood target. Like the gear that they have is for fighting an enemy and for restraining and suppressing
for taking what you want. Doesn't really matter what the physical.
Yeah, you can protest all you want. And we're kitted out way better than you, and we're going to shut you down. As opposed to the police, it's like, okay, so what seems to be the problem here? Let's work it out. So we can just all go home without any problems. Yeah. Now that is keeping the peace. Yeah. That is serving and protecting a community. Now when you start putting guys with like, high-end tack gear, like the helmets, the masks, the elbow pads, the knees, the body armor, all of that stuff with like weaponry against your own people, that's starting to be sketchy, especially when it's coming from like the world's largest military industrial complex, where they've been investing billions and billions and billions into being the world police, and now they're just turning it on their own people. And that's where I think the veneer is now being opened up. Hey, this is how they operate. It's not just policing the world, it's policing their own people. This is a police state, so.
And that sucks.
Yeah, on that note. See you next week.
Yeah.
Stay happy. Be happy. Work on yourself. Find your spirit animal.
Yeah. And ride it around town.
Be a swan.
Yeah. Be a silly goose.
Silly goose.
Be an ugly duckling. Fuck. That it? We're done?
Yeah. See you next week. Love you guys. Bye-bye.